How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Pro Football Podcast with your host, Alec Picado, on Thursday, October 24th. Today's show is a double episode 8 and 9 of the Pro Football Podcast. We have a lot to cover today, and I will be splitting this up, episode 8 and episode 9 in the same video. And you'll still get the same. The only thing you won't get on today's show is the Week 7 Sunday review, as we have a lot of other stuff to cover. And we are going to get started with my upset picks for week number 8 in the NFL, starting with the Rams +3 to upset the Vikings. The Vikings are coming off a bye week, and the Rams get Cooper Kupp back this week. And later on in the show, I will talk about my top 4 trade candidates. And Cooper Kupp is not on there, and I don't see him getting traded. But that is my first upset. My second upset is the Jaguars +3 to upset the Packers. The Jaguars are coming off a win in London against the Patriots to get their second win of the season. And I think they can take that momentum into this game against Green Bay, and they beat the Packers. They upset Green Bay. My third upset is the Cardinals +6.5 to upset the Dolphins. It is believed to me that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be back this week for the Dolphins. And if he is, I think it's going to take him 1 or 2 weeks to get back to full health, to being back to full 100%. Therefore, I like the Cardinals +6.5 points to pull the upset here. Now we get to my locks of the week. And my first lock of the week is the Buccaneers to beat the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers bounce back here, even though they're going to be without both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin's out for the year. But I think the Buccaneers can win this game. And then my next lock of the week is the Ravens to beat the Browns. The Browns are on Jameis Winston will be starting at quarterback for the Browns. And I know what the Jameis Winston experience is like. It is not a good experience. So therefore, give me the Ravens to beat the Browns. And then we got the Chargers to beat the Saints. The Saints are horrendous. And I don't believe the Saints are going to be able to stick around in this game. So what is Okay, so it's the trade candidates. Top 4. Here are my top 4 trade candidates after week 7 of the NFL. At number 4, this is, I'm hearing rumblings. It might happen. Here are 3 teams that I think can trade for the Browns defensive end, Myles Garrett. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes. I think you need to make this move. Give up a couple picks, a first and a second, or 2 firsts to get Myles Garrett. You need somebody to rush the passer after the Aiden Hutchinson injury. And I think that guy could be Myles Garrett. Number 2 on the list for Myles Garrett is the Chicago Bears. Now, does this happen? The Bears have the draft capital in order to make the trade. Do they? I'm going to give it a 60% chance that it happens. And at number 1, this team just got Hassan Reddick back. That is why he's not on this list. The New York Jets. I think if Woody Johnson says the Jets are not done making moves, and I believe it, I think they're going to trade away a couple picks to get Myles Garrett. Number 3 on this list is another Browns player. Yes, the Browns are going to sell. The Browns are in a fire sale. The next guy they're going to trade is defensive back Greg Newsome II. And here's the 3 teams that I think should go after him. Of course, one of them, number 3, is the Detroit Lions. And it's self-explanatory. The Lions have needed help the last few years in the secondary. And I think that Newsome would fit perfectly in Detroit. You could give up a late round pick for Greg Newsome and make the trade. Number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, Jamel Dean's been good. Kristen Isian, You need another guy on the outside, another perimeter defense DB. I like Zion McCollum, but I think he's better in the slot. So Greg Newsome to the Buccaneers kind of makes a lot of sense to me. And number 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like Joey Porter Jr., and I like the other defensive back they have, but I think they need to go out and make a move for one more defensive back to shore up that secondary, and that could be Greg Newsome from the Browns. I understand it's within the division, but the Browns are horrible this year. My number 2 trade candidate is Jets wide receiver Mike Williams. And the 3 teams that need to pick up the phone right now and call the Jets for Mike Williams. Number 3, the Los Angeles Chargers. They need I think the Chargers. I like Ladd McConkey. Would you send? Yes, I would send that trade since it's a keeper league. But Hurts Tyreek Hill. Yes, I would do that trade under one condition. See if you could get the other guy to budge and give you another piece in the trade. And I like this your side of the trade here. I like that you're getting Tyreek Hill. I like you're getting Jalen Hurts and Cooper Kupp. Because I don't think Cooper Kupp's getting traded. And I said that earlier on a few minutes ago on the show. But I feel like Jalen Hurts is about to go off. JSN. I'd go for Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. So you're giving up Waddle, Lamar, Chase Brown for Hurts, Tyreek Hill, and JSN, or I would do that trade right now before the guy you're trading with says no, because no, it'd be a different situation if it was Dynasty. I would say do not do that trade because you look at it, it's a keeper league, so you could do that trade. But if it was Dynasty, I would say no because you want Brian Thomas Jr. on your team. And you want Lamar. You want Chase Brown. You want Jalen Waddle. but it's keeper leagues. So you only get, how many keepers do you get? Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I think the Chargers need to pick up the phone and call the Jets on Mike Williams. I like Lad McConkey. Quentin Johnston, he's had a better season this year, but I still don't trust that he's going to be a number 1 or number 2 receiver in the NFL. So I think the Chargers need to pick up the phone and make a phone call to the Jets to reunite with Mike Williams. Number 2, and I know they just traded for D-Hop, but 2 keepers. The only thing with Chubb is he's coming back from a major injury. Who are your other options to keep? Let me know in the comments. Mad Max, who are your other guys you could keep other than Chubb? Because we don't know how long it's going to take. Chubb's back, but we don't know how long it's going to necessarily take for him to get back to full 100% where he's the bell cow running back in Cleveland. And the number 1 team that I think needs to pick up the phone and make a phone call to the Jets for Mike Williams, and it should be a surprise to nobody, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to say start Zay Flowers as long as he plays, because Mike Evans is out and Tank Dell is, I'm not going to say a lost cause, but he's been struggling to get receptions. He gets the targets, but he doesn't necessarily, he's not productive, put it that way. And the number 1 guy on the trade block for me is Max Crosby of the Raiders. I know. Oh, Jordan Addison. Start Jordan Addison. I think the Vikings are going to have to throw a lot tonight against the Rams. So I would start Jordan Addison. Anyway, the 3 teams that need to pick up the phone and make a call to the Raiders for Max Crosby. Number 3, I talked about them a minute ago for Myles Garrett. It is the Chicago Bears. Could you imagine a defensive line of Max Crosby and Montez Sweat? That, to me, that's a scary combination. And I think the Bears could do it. They have the picks. Do the Raiders budge and say, you know what? I know you said you wanted to be a Raider for life, but we want to send you to a contender. And I think the Bears, they're 4-2 right now. Let me know in the comments, do you think the Bears make the playoffs this year? Yes or no? And what do you think their final record is? Tell me that in the comments as well. The number 2 team that should call the Raiders for Myles Garrett, it's kind of obvious. It's the Detroit Lions. They have the picks. And I just talked about how Brad Holmes needs to pick up the phone and call the Raiders or the Browns. And I think the Lions make the most sense here, but there's a team that makes more sense than them at number 1, and I'll get to it in a second. But I really think the Lions need to be serious about this because their Super Bowl window is open right now. And it's not going to stay open very much longer. I think they need to go out and make a move for either Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. And at number one, the number one team that needs to pick up the phone and call the Raiders about Max Crosby is the New York Jets. Like I said earlier, Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, said they are not done making moves, which tells me they might be trying to go out and make a big splash before the November 5th trade deadline. Could it be for Myles Garrett? Could it be for Max Crosby? We'll have to see. And believe me, if those trades happen, I will be making either a video about it or a post about it on my either a YouTube video or posting about it on my community polls. Next, we've got now I'm going to briefly talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how they can turn their season around. Should I start Puka if he plays for him? I don't think Puka's playing this week. Did the Rams come out and say that Puka's going to play? If Puka plays, you start Puka, but that's a tough one for me because you got both. You got Marvin Harrison and Puka Nacua. You're Cooped Whitson. I would go Marvin Harrison Jr. if I was in your situation, because if Puka plays, I'm going to guess he's going to be on a snap count tonight, since it would be his first game back, and they don't want to rush him right back into game action. But anyway, the Buccaneers lost to the Ravens on Monday Night Football this past week, and they lost two big players in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Evans is out for the next 4 weeks. You're welcome, Cooped. Keep sending your questions in, and I will get to them as we go through the show. But the Buccaneers lost Mike Evans for, it sounds like, the next 4 weeks. But Godwin's out for the year, and I don't think Chris Godwin's going to be a Buccaneer next year. The Bucs don't have the money. I can see that's why they drafted Jalen McMillan, is to replace Chris Godwin. But I think the Buccaneers are still going to make a run at the playoffs this year. How far do they get is still to be determined. Now, we are going to get to the second half of the video. We're going to talk about my game picks for week number 9. And we are well over 500 in game picks. We went last week in the NFL. We went 13-8, which puts our season record at 76-63. And I want to hear everybody else's pick for the games I give you in the comment section. Starting with Thursday Night Football tonight, we've got the Vikings and the Rams. I'm going to go with the Rams here. I think the Rams need this win more than the Vikings. So give me the Los Angeles Rams to beat the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. Now we get to Sunday Night Football, and we got the 49ers and the Cowboys. I don't like the matchup here for the Cowboys. Give me San Francisco, even though they don't have Brandon Ayuk, And I'm going to tell you this right now in fantasy. If you had Brandon Ayuk, if Ricky Pearsall is somehow on your waiver wire still because he wasn't drafted or he was dropped because somebody didn't want to put him in their IR spot, I would pick up Ricky Pearsall and stash it and put him on your bench. Or if you were starting Ayuk, I would start him for Brandon Ayuk, who's out for the rest of the season. And now, like I said, my pick is the 49ers here. We get to Monday Night Football. Giants, Steelers. I am taking the Steelers with Russell Wilson, who I'm going to say this. I was wrong last week when I said that Russell Wilson's washed. I guess I was sadly mistaken. And I should have been careful what I said. I wasn't careful. And look what he did. Now we get to the early window on Sunday. And we get to the Ravens and the Browns. I am taking the Baltimore Ravens here, which I think everybody in their right mind is going to take the Ravens over the Browns. The Browns are ravaged with injuries, and they're going to continue to make trades to recoup more draft picks and hopefully try to get out of this John Watson contract in the offseason, which I don't think they will because I saw where if the Browns release Watson, it's going to cost them 46. Yeah, that's why Lee Smitty. I take back what I said about him being washed. That was the best game Pickens had all season was last week against the Jets on Sunday Night Football. And I've changed my stance on Russell Wilson, but should Justin Fields have been benched? I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Was that the right move by Tomlin, benching Justin Fields for Russell Wilson? I don't think Russell Wilson's washed. I think the Steelers made the right choice. I like Justin Fields. I'm a Justin Fields homer, I will admit. But I think Russell Wilson's going to end up being the starting quarterback the rest of the season for the Steelers. Back to my picks. So we go to the Lions and the Titans. This game's easy for me to pick. It's going to be the Lions. Next one, Cardinals and Dolphins. This is one of my upset picks. So obviously, I'm going with the Cardinals. Texans and Colts. Give me the Texans to bounce back after a tough loss last week. Jets and Patriots. This is not going to be a beautiful game. I would not want to be New England this week. Give me the Jets in how do we say it? A laugher. I do think Drake May has a good game and throws for 2 or 3 touchdowns again, like he did last week. Then we get the Buccaneers and the Falcons. I'm taking the Buccaneers to bounce back against the Falcons after that tough, hard-fought loss. Exactly. Yes, he does. And I think he throws a better deep ball than Justin Fields. That's the one knock on Justin Fields in his pro career is he can't throw the ball deep. If he could, he'd still maybe be the starting quarterback in Chicago. But that's the problem is he can't. Then you get the Eagles and the Bengals, which to me, I think this is going to be throwing duds into the ground before Pickens had to make acrobatic catches. LOL. Yes, he was. You're right about that. And I think the Steelers might go out and make a move for another wide receiver. I can see it, but I don't know who they'd go out and make a trade for. People are saying Cooper Kupp. Then again, yes, valid. That's not a bad pro comp, but the only difference is Fields has a lot more skill than Kaepernick. And in my opinion, Fields is a better QB than Kaepernick. Because if Kaepernick was actually good still, he'd still be in the NFL maybe. But he ruined that by... I'm actually not going to get into that because that's politics related, and I don't like bringing up politics as the reason why Kaepernick got... Is it ever going to get another chance in the NFL? But I think the Bengals are going to beat the Eagles. Then we get to the late window. Saints and Chargers. Give me the Chargers. Yeah, I don't like talking about that kind of stuff on any of my podcasts I do. I try to stay as far away from that angle in the world as I can. I mean, yeah, you could say that. I think he was too, but that's another whole kind of story for another day. But then we got the Bills and Seahawks, and I'm taking the Buffalo Bills to beat the Seahawks. Broncos and Panthers. Give me the Broncos. Bears. And same here. I would have kept Fields as starter too. He was 4-2 as the starter. It made zero sense to me why they benched Justin Fields. And I'm not going to knock on Mike Tomlin. He's a really good coach. But some of the moves he makes doesn't really make sense to me. And I will go more in depth about that in a second here after the last of the game picks. Commanders, Bears. I think Commanders, Bears is going to be a good game too. Even if Jana Daniels does not play. Give me the Bears. And the last one, the Chiefs and the Raiders. I think everybody knows who the pick's going to be there. It is going to be the Chiefs. Now we can have a conversation about some of the moves Mike Tomlin makes to me don't make sense at all. Like you fired Matt Canada, which I was all here for, but then you bring in a guy that was a head coach for the Falcons last year, Arthur Smith. Pick up Bears defense or Chargers to play. I'm going to, you know what? Smitty, I'm going to go with the Chargers. The Chargers, because I think the Bears and Commanders, that's going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Chargers are going to put up a lot of points on offense and defense against the Saints. And the Saints are starting Spencer Rattler. And if Spencer Rattler's out, then you're starting Jake Hayner. So regardless, they're starting an inexperienced quarterback. So I would go to Chargers defense. And here's something I'm also going to say on that is fantasy football. If you play with defenses, you want to look at the schedule coming up for defenses, and you want to stash a defense a week ahead of time for, say, they're playing the Saints, say they're playing the Browns, whoever's playing the Saints or the Browns, you want to stash that defense a week ahead of time before your league mates get to the opportunity to pick up that defense. The next thing we are going to cover on the show today is my top 10 power rankings after week 7, starting with number 10, the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos actually have been playing really well. And Bo Nix and Troy Franklin seem to have that college connection back. At number 9, the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know how they do it. They just keep winning. The Bengals, 3-4 on the year. It seems like the Bengals have found their stride. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. I would not want to be playing the Bengals right now. And the Eagles have that distinction this week. At number 8. At number 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we just talked about them in depth a few minutes ago on the show. And to me, they're going to make a decision on their quarterback after the bye week, which I think it should be. I really think Justin Fields should be starting the rest of the year. At number 6 is the 5-2 Washington Commanders. Now, if you want to go back and watch my very first video where I did all the divisions and I picked where I had the Commanders, I might be wrong on the Commanders. They're 5-2. I know it's still kind of somewhat early, but I think they're contenders. And I think they need to go out and trade for a certain wide receiver. Call up the Jets and see if they're willing to cough up Garrett Wilson for a couple draft picks. Because you need a number 2 receiver behind Terry McLaurin. And Devontae Adams is just he's going to gobble up all the targets there in New York. And I understand Garrett Wilson still had 9 targets last week. But his targets are going to fluctuate now with Devontae Adams there. And I think if the Commanders throw a second or first round pick at the Jets and say, here, we'll give you a first round pick for Garrett Wilson, they'd take it in a heartbeat. Because Lord knows the Commanders, they could choke down the stretch. And then that becomes a top 5 pick, which then the Jets could use to either get a quarterback to replace Rodgers with, or a young wide receiver, or maybe Travis Hunter. At number 4 is the Green Bay. At number 5 is the Green Bay Packers, 5-1. They beat the Lions. They beat the Texans last week, and I called that on the show last week. And the Packers. Oh no, correction. Number 5 is the Lions. I had my teams mixed up. The Lions, 5-1, beat the Vikings last week. And I like the way the Lions are playing, but like I said in the trade portion earlier in the show, I think the Lions do need to go out and make a trade for a defensive lineman, for a defensive end, either Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. Now we can talk about the Packers, who beat the Texans last week, which I called on the show. And I think the Packers could win the NFC North. At number 3 is the 4-3 Seattle Seahawks, who shockingly lead the NFC West. I had the Seahawks in last place coming into the season because they had a new head coach, Mike McDaniel, and I didn't think they were going to be very good. I know Geno's still on the team, DK Metcalf, Taylor Lockett. I did think that JSN was going to have a breakout season, and maybe it's still going to happen, but I'm shocked that they're in first place. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills, 5-2. They look dangerous all of a sudden with Amari Cooper, which is going to give Keon Coleman the opportunity to step up as the number 2 receiver now and not have as much pressure on him. And at number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. To no one's just surprise. And they just got better by getting DeAndre Hopkins, who's magically going to turn back into peak DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion. And the teams that just missed out, at number 11 was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At number 12 was the Philadelphia Eagles. 13, the Minnesota Vikings. And 14, the Chicago Bears. Now we get to my updated coach's hot seat. Yep. So my updated coach's hot seat. I have 3 coaches on here that 2 of them I think are pretty much a done deal. They're going to get fired at the end of the year. And one who he could lower his chances of getting fired. Number 3 for me right now on my updated coach's hot seat is Saints head coach Dennis Allen. The Saints started 2-0, and then ever since they've lost 6 in a row, including getting thumped last Thursday night by the Broncos. I think Dennis Allen's chances of getting fired are at 94%. Yes, 94% chance that Dennis Allen gets the good old walking papers at the end of the season, and they look for a new head coach. Maybe it's Clint Kubiak. Number 2, Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. The Browns were supposed to be contenders in the AFC North this year, and they have been awful. And Deshaun Watson's been tragically awful. And I just want to say before I finish this, prayers up to Deshaun Watson. Hopefully he recovers well from this ruptured Achilles he has. And I'm going to say this. Browns fans, you have to be sick to your stomach for what you did to Deshaun Watson. Cheering him when he got hurt, I don't agree with it at all. But Kevin Stefanski's got a 95.7% chance that he gets fired after the season's over. And at number 1, Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. Now, they do get Tua back this week, and their schedule gets a little more favorable. And he sits at 84.5% chance right now for him to get canned at the end of the year. And the last thing I'm going to cover on the show today is I'm going to give you my updated rest of season NFC and AFC division leaders and winners. So we start in the NFC North. I think the Lions are still going to finish in first place with a record of 13-4. Coming in second is the Minnesota Vikings at 12-5. The Bears are, and Adam Rank, an NFL analyst, will like this. Yes, I just gave a shout out to Adam Rank. I have the Bears finishing the season at 11-6. And the Packers, unfortunately, Packers fans, I don't know if you're going to like me much longer. I have y'all finishing in last place at 10-7. Now we get to the NFC East. And I only have two teams in the NFC East winning 10 or more games. And the first one, shocker, I have the Commanders winning the NFC East at 12-6. Yes, you heard me right. 12-6 for the Commanders. Finishing in second with an 11-6 record. 11-6 record is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the Eagles, I still think the Eagles are going to be good. I just don't think they're going to win the division. You know, boy, buckle in, Giants fans. You're going to finish 7-10. And I don't agree that you're going to bring back your GM and head coach next year. I think GM should come back. Dable is a good head coach. They need to get rid of Daniel Jones. And finishing hilariously in last place is the Dallas Cowboys with a 6-11 record. Yeah, it's going to be ugly for Cowboys fans. And then finishing off the – oh, no, we got two more divisions left in the NFC. We have the NFC South, and I talked about it earlier when I talked about the Buccaneers. I still think the Buccaneers somehow win the NFC South, going 12-6. And that starts with a win this week against the Falcons. Then you get the Falcons, who split with the Buccaneers, and they finish 10-6 on the season. Finishing in third are the Carolina Panthers, going 7 wins and 11 losses. Finishing in last place, unfortunately, in the basement of the NFC South, are the New Orleans Saints, going 5-12. Now we finish off the NFC with the NFC West. And we have the 49ers. I have the San Francisco 49ers somehow still winning this division, going 12-6. Followed by the Los Angeles Rams, going 11-7. And then we get to the Seattle Seahawks, going 10-6, as well as the Arizona Cardinals, also going 10-6. Now we get to the AFC, and we're going to go first with the AFC North. I think the Ravens win the AFC North, going 13-4. Then I have the Bengals finishing in second, 12-6, and the Steelers finishing in third, going 11-7. And then I didn't even put the Browns record because I don't really know what it's going to be. If I had to make a bold prediction, I think they're going to finish 3-14. I think they win 2 more games, and then that is it. We get to the AFC East, and I have the Buffalo Bills 3 and winning the AFC East, finishing in second in the AFC East. I have the New York Jets at 12-6, finishing third at 10-7, the Miami Dolphins. And yes, I know I'm probably going to get asked why about the Dolphins going 10-7. Their schedule, and can Tua stay healthy the rest of the year? I don't think Tua can. That's just me. Now we'll see. AFC South. I have the Texans winning the AFC South, going 12-6. Number 2, finishing second in the AFC South. I have the Indianapolis Colts going 11-7. The Jags finishing third at 10-7. And the Titans going 3-14, getting the a top 5 pick. Now we get to the AFC West. Unfortunately, I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the AFC West, going 13-4, 13-3, correction, finishing in second at 12-6 is the Denver Broncos. Finishing third at 11-7 is the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think there's a way that three AFC West teams make the playoffs. And I'll explain in a second. And unfortunately, in last place in the AFC West, I have the Las Vegas Raiders going 2-15. Now I'm going to do my best to explain why I think three teams in the AFC West can make the playoffs. There's two wild cards. I believe there's two wild cards. So you're going to have the Chiefs get the division. And then you're going to have one of two things happen. You get one other team that makes it from the AFC North, which is probably going to be the Bengals. So they get one of the wild cards. Then it's going to be a battle for that last wild card between probably the Broncos, probably the Chargers, probably the Dolphins, and maybe the Steelers. So that's four teams for one spot. And I tell you what happens. I think there's a way the Broncos get in and the Chargers both get in the playoffs. And it's just a theory. Does it happen? Possibly. Will it happen? Probably not. But that is going to do it today for the Pro Football Podcast. I will see everybody back here at 5:45 p.m. for the Fourth and Long Podcast.